I never thought I'd see her again. 8 years is a long time, long enough to build a whole new life, long enough to forget someone. Or at least that's what I kept telling myself. I left my hometown in Ohio right after college and moved to Seattle. Got a good job in marketing, made some solid friends, and created a routine that kept me busy enough not to think about the past too much. Life was comfortable, predictable, safe. Then my best friend got married back home, and I couldn't say no to being his best man. The wedding was beautiful, the reception went late, and I may have had one too many drinks celebrating. The next morning, I woke up with a pounding headache and decided coffee was the only solution. There was this little coffee shop downtown that used to be my favorite spot back in the day. I figured it would be quiet on a Sunday morning, a good place to recover and scroll through my phone before heading back to Seattle. I ordered a large black coffee and found a corner table by the window. The place hadn't changed much. Same wooden tables, same smell of fresh pastries, same old jazz music playing softly in the background. I was halfway through checking my emails when the door chimed. I looked up out of habit, and my heart literally stopped. It was her, Rachel, my first love, my first everything really, the girl who left me 8 years ago to chase her dreams in New York City. She looked different somehow, more grown up, more put together. Her hair was shorter, styled in a way that probably cost more than I used to make in a week back then. She wore a professional-looking coat and carried a leather bag that screamed success. But her eyes, those deep brown eyes, they were exactly the same. For a second, I thought about grabbing my coffee and slipping out the back. We could pretend we hadn't seen each other, keep our separate lives separate. My hand was already reaching for my cup when she turned her head and spotted me. Our eyes locked, and I saw something flash across her face. Surprise, maybe recognition, definitely something I couldn't quite read. I expected a polite wave, maybe a quick hello before we both went our separate ways. That's how these things usually go, right? You run into an ex, exchange some awkward pleasantries, promise to catch up sometime knowing you never will, and move on. But Rachel didn't wave. She didn't smile politely and order her coffee. Instead, she walked straight toward my table with this determined look on her face that I remembered from years ago. The same look she had when she made up her mind about something and nothing could change it. Before I could say anything, before I could even stand up or prepare myself, she pulled out the chair across from me and sat down. But she didn't sit across from me. She moved the chair around to my side of the table and sat right next to me. Too close. Close enough that our shoulders almost touched. Close enough that I could smell her perfume. And it hit me like a wave because it was the same perfume she wore back then. How did she still wear the same perfume after all these years? My mind was racing. What was happening? Why was she sitting so close? We hadn't spoken in 8 years. 8 years of silence, of moving on, of pretending that what we had didn't matter anymore. And now here she was, inches away from me, looking at me with an intensity that made my coffee suddenly seem very interesting. "We need to talk," she said. And her voice was steady, but there was something underneath it, something urgent. "We aren't done yet." We never were. I just stared at her. We aren't done yet? What did that even mean? We were definitely done. She made sure of that when she got on a plane to New York 8 years ago and barely looked back. I wanted to say something clever, something that would show her I was over it, over her, that I'd moved on and built a great life. But nothing came out. I just sat there like an idiot, holding my coffee cup, trying to process what was happening. "I know this is unexpected," she continued, not waiting for me to respond. "I know you probably hate me, and you have every right to. But I saw you were in town for the wedding, and I couldn't let this chance pass. I've been thinking about this for years, about what I'd say if I ever saw you again." Years? She'd been thinking about this for years? I finally found my voice. "Rachel, it's been 8 years. What are you talking about?" She took a deep breath, and I noticed her hands were shaking slightly. She clasped them together on the table, and I could see she was wearing nice jewelry, expensive-looking stuff. Everything about her screamed that she'd made it, that she'd achieved everything she went to New York for. "I made a mistake," she said quietly. looking right into my eyes. The biggest mistake of my life. And I need you to hear me out, please. Just give me a chance to explain everything. The coffee shop suddenly felt to warm. Other people were coming in now, ordering their Sunday morning coffee, chatting and laughing, living their normal lives. Meanwhile, my entire world had just tilted sideways. This woman who I'd loved more than anything, who'd broken my heart so completely that it took me years to even think about dating again, was sitting beside me saying she'd made a mistake. Part of me wanted to get up and walk away, protect myself from getting hurt again. But another part of me, the part that apparently never stopped loving her, wanted to hear what she had to say. Needed to hear it, actually. Because for 8 years, I'd wondered why. Why she chose New York over us. Why she left so easily. Why she never fought for what we had. Okay, I heard myself say, I'm listening. Rachel let out a breath she'd been holding and nodded, like she'd been preparing for this moment, and now that it was here, she wasn't quite sure where to start. She ordered a coffee from the waitress who'd come by, and we sat in this weird silence while we waited. When her cup arrived, she wrapped both hands around it like she needed something to hold onto. You remember my dad, she started, and I felt my jaw tighten. Yeah, I remember her dad. He never liked me much. He gave me an ultimatum. The week before I left for New York, he sat me down and told me if I stayed here with you, he'd cut me off completely. No more help with student loans, no more family support, nothing. I felt anger rising in my chest. You never told me that. I know, she said quietly. I should have. But I was drowning back then. I had $60,000 in student debt. My mom had just been diagnosed with breast cancer, and the medical bills were piling up. Dad said the job in New York was my chance to make something of myself, to help the family. He said you were going nowhere, that you'd hold me back from my potential. Those words stung, even though they came from her father and not her. Going nowhere. I'd been working 2 jobs back then, trying to save money, trying to build something. It wasn't glamorous, but I was trying. He said if I really loved you, I'd let you go so you could find someone better suited to your level. She continued, her voice cracking slightly. Someone who matched your ambition. He made it sound like staying with you would be selfish, like I'd be dragging you down too. That's garbage and you know it, I said, trying to keep my voice down. We could have figured it out together. That's what people do when they love each other. I was 22 years old, Rachel said, and now there were tears in her eyes. I was scared and overwhelmed, and my mom was sick and I didn't know what to do. Dad made it seem like there was only one right choice. He even had Mom talk to me, telling me to be practical, to think about my future. She wiped her eyes quickly, and I found myself softening a little. I'd loved her mom. She was kind to me, always welcoming. I didn't know she'd been sick back then, so I made the choice, Rachel continued. I took the job, but I couldn't face telling you the real reason. How do you tell someone you love that your family thinks they're not good enough? That you're choosing money and approval over them? I convinced myself it would be easier for both of us if I just made a clean break. Let you hate me for leaving rather than hate me for the real reasons. I wrote you letters. She said, pulling her phone out and scrolling through something. Dozens of them, explaining everything, apologizing, telling you the truth. But I never sent them. I kept telling myself it was better this way, that you move on faster if you thought I just didn't care. She showed me her phone. There were drafts of emails, dated from 8 years ago, some from 6 years ago, some from just last year, all addressed to me, all unsent. I scanned a few lines and saw my name over and over. Saw words like sorry and mistake and still love you. Why didn't you send them? I asked. Cowardice, she said simply. Fear. By the time I realized I made a huge mistake, months had passed. Then a year. Then 2 years. How do you reach out after that much time and say, hey, remember me? I ruined the best thing in my life. Want to try again? We sat there for a long moment. The coffee shop had gotten busier. Families coming in, couples on dates. People living their normal Sunday lives while mine was being turned upside down. Tell me about New York, I said finally. Was it worth it? Rachel laughed, but it was a bitter sound. I made good money, paid off my loans, helped with mom's treatment, and she's cancer-free now, thank God. I climbed the corporate ladder, got the fancy apartment, the whole package, and I was miserable. Every relationship I tried to start fell apart because I was comparing everyone to you. Every time something good happened, my first instinct was to call you and tell you about it. And then I remember that I couldn't, that I'd given up that right. I did the same thing. I admitted, compared everyone to you. It took me 3 years before I could even go on a date without feeling guilty, like I was cheating on a ghost. I heard you moved to Seattle, she said. Someone from high school mentioned it. They said you were doing really well, that you'd build a great career. I was happy for you, but it also broke my heart because I wasn't part of it. We ended up talking for over 2 hours. The coffee shop staff probably wanted us to leave, but we couldn't stop. 8 years of silence came pouring out. I told her about the first 6 months after she left. How I'd fallen into this dark place where I couldn't eat or sleep properly. How I'd thrown myself into work just to avoid thinking about her. How I'd eventually moved to Seattle because everything in Ohio reminded me of her. She told me about crying herself to sleep in her tiny New York apartment, about the pressure from her father to prove she'd made the right choice, about the guilt of knowing she'd hurt me so badly when the coffee shop finally closed. We walked outside into the afternoon sun. Without planning it, we started walking through our old neighborhood, past the park where we'd had our first kiss under the big oak tree, past the movie theater where we'd spent every Friday night, past the ice cream shop where she always ordered mint chocolate chip, and I'd tease her about her boring taste. Every corner held a memory. Every street corner was a ghost of who we used to be. Young, hopeful, believing that love was enough to conquer anything. We'd been wrong about that, or at least we'd been too young to know how to make it work. I need to tell you something else, Rachel said as we reached the park and sat on our old bench. I'm engaged. Those 2 words hit me like a physical blow. Of course she was engaged. Beautiful, successful, amazing Rachel. Why wouldn't she be? But hearing it out loud made this whole conversation feel different suddenly. What were we doing? Why was she here telling me all this if she was engaged to someone else? His name is Derek, she continued, staring at her hands. He's a lawyer, stable, successful, everything my family wanted for me. We've been together for 2 years. Then why are you here? I asked, and I couldn't keep the edge out of my voice. Why are you telling me all this? She looked at me then, really looked at me, and I saw everything in her eyes. The regret, the longing, the question she was asking without words, because I don't love him. She whispered, I thought I could. I tried so hard to love him. But then I heard you were coming back to town, and something inside me just cracked wide open. All these feelings I'd been pushing down for 8 years came flooding back. I realized I've been settling, trying to build a life with someone safe because I was too scared to admit I never got over you. The sun was setting now, casting everything in this golden light. We sat on that bench where we'd sat 100 times before, older now, carrying more scars, but somehow feeling exactly like we had all those years ago. What do you want from me, Rachel? I asked softly. I want another chance, she said. I want to see if what we had is still there. I want to stop wondering what if and finally know for sure. I barely slept that night. I laid in my hotel room staring at the ceiling, replaying everything Rachel had said. By the time the sun came up, I'd gone through every emotion possible. Anger at her for leaving. Anger at myself for still caring. Hope that maybe we could fix this. Fear that I was about to make a huge mistake. My flight back to Seattle was in 2 days. 2 days to figure out if I was going to walk away from my life there and take a chance on something that had already broken me once. It seemed insane, but I also couldn't imagine getting on that plane without seeing her again. She texted me around 9 in the morning. Can we meet? Same place. I got to the coffee shop first and ordered for both of us. Black coffee for me, caramel latte for her. Some things don't change. When she walked in, she looked tired, like she hadn't slept either. She sat down, saw her drink waiting, and gave me this small smile that reminded me of 1,000 other mornings. We'd shared coffee together. I talked to Derek last night, she said without any preamble. I told him I ran into you. I told him I needed time to think. What did he say? He was upset, obviously, but he's not stupid. He's known for a while that something was off between us. I think part of him was relieved to finally have it out in the open. She took a sip of her latte. He's staying at a friend's place for a few days while I figure things out, Rachel. You can't blow up your life because we ran into each other and had a few emotional conversations. I said, even though everything in me wanted her to do exactly that. That's not fair to him, and it's not fair to you. I'm not blowing up my life because we ran into each other, she said firmly. I'm doing it because I've been unhappy for months, maybe longer. I've been going through the motions, planning a wedding I don't want, building a future with someone I respect but don't love, all because I was too scared to admit I made the wrong choice years ago. And what about me? I asked. You think I can just drop everything in Seattle and come back here? I have a job, an apartment, a whole life there. I'm not asking you to drop everything, she said. I'm asking if you'd be willing to try, to see if this thing between us is still real or if it's just nostalgia and old feelings. We spent that whole day together. We drove out to the lake where we used to go swimming in the summer. We grabbed lunch at this diner that made the best burgers in town. We talked about everything and nothing, carefully dancing around the big question hanging between us. But by evening, we couldn't avoid it anymore. We were sitting in my hotel room, the most neutral territory we could find, and the weight of the decision was crushing both of us. I'm scared, Rachel admitted. I'm scared of hurting Derek, even though I know staying with him would be worse. I'm scared of disappointing my family again. My dad is going to lose it when he finds out. And I'm terrified that we'll try this and it won't work, and I'll have given up everything for nothing. I'm scared too, I said. I spent years building walls so I wouldn't get hurt like that again. And here you are, asking me to tear them all down. What if you change your mind again? What if something else comes along that's more important than us? I can't promise everything will be perfect, Rachel said. I can't promise we won't fight or struggle or have doubts. But I can promise I won't run away again. I'm not that scared 22-year-old anymore. I know what I want now, and I know what I lost. We argued back and forth for hours. Every practical concern, every fear, every doubt came spilling out. The logistics seemed impossible. Seattle was thousands of miles from New York. One of us would have to give up our job, our home, our life. And what if it didn't work out? What if we both idealized what we had and the reality couldn't live up to the memory? Maybe we're being stupid, I said finally, exhausted from going in circles. Maybe the smart thing is to accept that we had something special once, but that time has passed. We're different people now. Do you really believe that? Rachel asked, looking at me with those eyes that still had the power to undo me completely. I wanted to say yes. I wanted to be the practical, sensible person who protected himself from getting hurt. But sitting there in that hotel room, with her so close I could hear her breathing, I couldn't lie. No, I whispered. I don't believe that at all. She moved closer to me on the couch, taking my hand in hers. I've spent 8 years wondering what if. 8 years wishing I could go back and make a different choice. Now we have a chance to stop wondering. It might be messy and complicated and scary, but isn't it worth finding out? What's your plan? I asked, specifically, because we can't just decide to be together and hope everything works out. Rachel took a deep breath. I'm going to end things with Derek, not because of you, but because it's the right thing to do. I should have done it months ago. Then I'm going to take some time to figure out what I really want in life. Not what my family wants or what looks good on paper, but what actually makes me happy. And what about your job in New York? I've been thinking about that, she said. There are marketing firms in Seattle. Good ones. I could apply, see what happens. It might take a few months, but I've got savings. Or maybe you could look for opportunities in New York. I'm not saying you have to move immediately, but we could at least explore the options. It sounded crazy. It sounded impulsive and risky and like exactly the kind of decision that could blow up in both our faces. But it also sounded like a chance at something real, something worth fighting for. My phone buzzed. It was my boss, asking when I'd be back in the office. Reality was calling, reminding me that I had responsibilities and commitments. I had a meeting on Thursday that I was supposed to lead. I had projects depending on me. I had a normal, stable, safe life waiting for me in Seattle, and I had Rachel sitting beside me, offering me a chance at something I'd thought was gone forever. I need to make some calls. I said finally, I need to talk to my boss, see if I can take some time off. I need to figure out if this is even possible. Rachel nodded, and I saw hope flickering in her eyes. Does that mean you're willing to try? I looked at her for a long moment. This woman who'd broken my heart and apparently never stopped carrying the pieces with her. Yeah, I said. I think I am. The next few days were chaos. I called my boss and explained that I had a family situation that needed my attention. It wasn't exactly a lie. This felt like family business, like something that would define the rest of my life. He wasn't thrilled, but I'd been with the company for 5 years and never took much time off. So he agreed to let me work remotely for a couple weeks while I sorted things out. Rachel had the harder conversation. She met Derek at a coffee shop in a neutral location and ended their engagement. She came to see me afterward, her eyes red from crying, her hands shaking. It was awful, she told me. He didn't deserve that. He's a good person, and I hurt him because I was too scared to face the truth months ago. Did you tell him about me? I asked. I told him I ran into an old love, and it made me realize I wasn't being fair to him by pretending. I was all in when I wasn't. He gets the rest. He told me I was making a mistake, that I was chasing a fantasy. That real relationships are about commitment and work, not passion and feelings. Maybe he's right, I said quietly. Rachel shook her head. He's right that relationships take work, but they should also make you happy. They should feel right, not like you're constantly trying to convince yourself it's good enough. I spent 2 years with Derek feeling like I was playing a role in someone else's life. That's not fair to either of us. Her family reacted exactly how we expected. Her father refused to speak to her. Her mother cried and said she was throwing her life away again, making the same impulsive mistakes. Her younger sister was the only one who supported her, telling her it was about time she did something for herself, instead of trying to please everyone else. Meanwhile, I was dealing with my own fears. Late at night, lying awake in that hotel room, I'd think about all the ways this could go wrong. What if we got back together and realized we'd grown too far apart? What if the chemistry we'd had as kids didn't translate to adult life? What if one of us had to sacrifice too much and ended up resenting the other? But then Rachel would text me, or we'd meet for breakfast, or we'd take a walk through town. And all those fears would quiet down for a bit, because being with her felt easy in a way that nothing else in my life did. We could talk for hours about nothing. We could sit in comfortable silence. We could finish each other's sentences like no time had passed at all. 1 week stretched into 2. I was working remotely from Ohio, taking calls from coffee shops and doing video meetings from my hotel room. Rachel had given notice at her New York job, citing personal reasons. She was staying at a friend's place, avoiding her parents' house where the tension was thick enough to cut. This is insane, she said one afternoon as we sat in the park. We're both in limbo. Our lives are a mess, and we still haven't figured out the basic logistics of how this would even work. I've been thinking about that, I said. What if we don't rush it? What if we take it slow? Date properly this time. Figure out what we both want before making any big decisions? You mean like a long-distance relationship? Rachel didn't look thrilled at that idea. For a little while, yeah, I need to go back to Seattle eventually. I can't work from a hotel room forever. But we could visit each other on weekends, do video calls, actually court each other like adults instead of trying to recreate what we had as kids. Rachel thought about it, chewing her bottom lip the way she always did when she was processing something. That makes sense logically, but I'm scared that distance will kill this before it even starts. We've already lost 8 years, and we can't get those years back by rushing now, I said. We're different people. We need to get to know each other again, build trust again. That takes time. When would you go back to Seattle? End of the week probably. I've already been gone too long. but I could come back in 3 weeks for a long weekend. And you could visit me after that. It wasn't the romantic solution either of us wanted, but it was the practical one, the grown-up one. And maybe that was what we needed to be this time around. Grown-ups who made smart decisions instead of impulsive kids following their feelings. That night, Rachel's sister invited us to dinner at her place. She lived about 30 minutes away with her husband and 2 kids. It was nice to be around a normal family, to see what a healthy relationship looked like. Her sister pulled me aside while Rachel was helping the kids with dessert. Take care of her, she said quietly. She's been miserable for years, pretending to be okay, trying to be who everyone wanted her to be. This is the first time I've seen her genuinely happy in forever. So please don't break her heart. I'm going to try my best not to, I said. But I need you to know, I'm scared too. She hurt me pretty badly 8 years ago. I know, her sister said. And she's carried that guilt every single day since. She's not going to make that mistake again. But you both need to be honest with each other, even when it's hard. That's what killed things last time. All the secrets and unspoken fears. She was right. We've been dancing around some hard truths, afraid to voice them in case they scared the other person off. But we couldn't build something real on half-truths and avoidance. Later that night, back at the hotel, I asked Rachel the question I've been avoiding. What if we try this and it doesn't work? What if we're better as a memory than we are as reality? She was quiet for a long moment. Then at least we'll know. At least we won't spend the rest of our lives wondering what if. That has to be better than the alternative. And what about your dad? Your family? They'll come around or they won't, Rachel said. And I heard a strength in her voice that reminded me why I'd fallen for her in the first place. I'm tired of living my life for other people's approval. I'm tired of being practical and sensible when it leaves me feeling empty inside. Maybe this is a mistake. Maybe we'll try and fail. But at least it'll be my mistake to make. On my last night in Ohio before heading back to Seattle, we went back to that coffee shop where this all started. We sat at the same table where she'd sat beside me too close and told me we weren't done yet. A week and a half had passed since then, but it felt like a lifetime. I'm going to miss you, Rachel said, holding my hand across the table. I'm going to miss you too, but it's only 3 weeks until I'm back. We can do 3 weeks. Can we though? She asked, and I heard the fear in her voice. Can we really do this? The distance and the uncertainty and all the complications? I squeezed her hand. I don't know, but I want to try. Don't you? She nodded, tears in her eyes. Yeah, I really do.